1952 was an auspicious year for two queens. For Elizabeth Windsor, it was the year of her ascension to the throne of the United Kingdom, and for Agatha Christie, the Queen of Crime, 1952 was the year her play The Mousetrap opened in the West End. Both have been securely in their place ever since. Now, COVID may have caused the show to close for a while, but it has recently reopened, and I went along to St Martin's Theatre to have a look at it myself. The Mousetrap is set in Monkswell Manor, a guest house owned and run by Molly and Giles Ralston. The two are nervous, as not only is today their opening day, but the weather is severe, with the radio warning that snowstorms are moving in at an alarming rate. Luckily, the guests start arriving before the snow really sets in. First up is the aptly named architect Christopher Wren, whose youthful exuberance is in stark contrast to the next guests, Mrs. Boyle and Major Metcalfe. They've shared a taxi up from the station. Mrs. Boyle is, not to put too fine a point on it, a serial complainer, for whom nothing is ever going to be right, while Major Metcalfe seems to be an amiable retired military man just hoping for a relaxing stay. As they're shown to their rooms, the final guest arrives in the form of Miss Casewell. Now everyone is present, they all meet in the sitting room and are starting to get to know each other when there is a knock at the door and Mr. Paravagini joins the throng. He apologises for turning up unexpectedly, but his car was overturned in the snow and he's made his way to the nearest house he could find. Molly finds him a room and everyone settles down to a pleasant evening in front of the open fire. The next day, as they realise the snow has completely cut them off, the Ralstons receive a telephone call from the police. There has been a murder in London and Detective Sergeant Trotter has been dispatched on a pair of skis to come to the manor. As they await the arrival of the skiing policeman, Giles, Molly and their guests are left wondering what they could have done to garner police attention on this scale. I last saw The Mousetrap in 2002, so I was really looking forward to seeing what the show was going to be like 19 years later. The good news is, it hasn't changed at all. The play is timeless, and I can fully understand why it's on every tourist list of things you have to do when in London. The story is pure Agatha Christie, with genuine clues and red herrings scattered all over the place. It is set in a time that appears to be either during or just after the Second World War. There is mention of rationing and conscription, but I wouldn't like to pin it down any more than that. The characters are typical Christie, composing of nice middle-class people, annoying elderly spinster, a mannish young woman, effete young man, and a dodgy-looking foreigner with an amusing accent. But as you would expect, not everyone is how they seem. Or are they? Dream on if you think I'm going to be giving anything away. The set is wonderful. Think a slightly lower-class version of the sitting room in Downton Abbey. It's a huge window outside which the snow falls, and there's a large fireplace. Costumes are on point era-wise, and the radio, with the lovely voice of Derek Guyler, still sits ready to the start of the show with its news and weather warning. The Mousetrap is probably the finest example of a traditional one-set, three-act play you will ever see. Yes, it's very much of its time, but in this case that's one of its advantages. The show has barely moved with the times, although I did read they've changed the way the snow falls to make it more realistic. But somehow the show still works as a piece of entertainment. To give you an idea, I've seen the show twice previously, and therefore know who the murderer is. But as I watched, I had that familiar feeling during the second act that actually it was someone else and not... Yeah, like I'm going to tell you. If you want to know, then book a ticket. This is a definite 5-star ranked show, and I look forward to it keeping its place in the West End until the Ravens leave the Tower of London.